Good morning, everybody. I think Doug just stepped away. He'll be back in a second.
Thanks, Brandon. Good morning.
Good morning.
Amber, are you excited? Getting some stuff going?
Well, the Oak Island deal, I was excited to go down there and show houses they had gotten pre-approved, but last night I got a phone call and somebody had already put an offer in on the home. So that's going to be typical though, I guess.
Yeah. But they figured out that they are pre-approved and they can they can make it happen.
Right. So but now they're thinking because they're in Raleigh that it's going to be the same situation with them being so far away. So
Hey
I'm
guys.
sorry. What did they tell you?
they were worried that because they're 2 hours away, that they, when they want to go take a look at something that's on the market, that it's going to get taken before they can get a hold of it.
Gotcha.
I feel like Oak Island doesn't move as quickly, but I could be wrong about that. But I like the people that I know that like are coming in town. I like preface it by like, look, y'all look at these houses, but you're going to see how quick they come off the market. You're going to notice that they're going to be pending really quickly. So let's, not get your heart set too much on stuff and look a little bit closer to the time you're coming. I don't know if that's good practice, but
I think that's great advice. I think, you got to tell people, if we know you're not going to be in town for 2 weeks, there's no reason to look at anything for 10 days at least. Because there's just no chance that it's going to still be around. And, even then in this market, I think that we have to make sure that we're reaching out to agents before we show homes and not just assuming because they approve the appointment that there's not something going on. So I would make sure that you guys are checking in and doing that if you're not.
amen.
Yeah, I have buyers coming in from New York this Sunday, and she's been for like a month now sending me homes she wants to look at when she's in town. And I'm like, yeah, let's wait till you're here because every time I check these, they're always pending. So
Yeah.
she
Just say,
literally
I'm
every day
glad
I
you're
go like
looking.
this.
I'm glad you're finding areas that you want to be in, but let's not put the cart ahead of the horse. Let's reconnect, 2 or 3 days before you're going to be here. And
2 or 3 hours before you're going to be
yeah,
here.
honestly.
Well, and another thing, I've got another couple that I've got them under agency now, and the 2 homes that they were going to look at this weekend, of course, they're off the market now, but they have a home they need to sell. And wouldn't you think that they need to put their house on the market first? I mean, if they have to sell their home in order to buy a home, wouldn't you think that would be the first step for them, is to get their home on the market because things are just going to sell so quickly?
100%. They need to sell because they can't purchase until they have the cash from the sale, is what it sounds like. But on top of that, it will also help them ascertain what their budget is for their purchase.
Right.
So
And they're going to be so shocked at how quick their house goes.
Right. And they're in Hubert, and they're pre-approved, but I feel like we're kind of going backwards here because they want to go out and look at homes and they keep getting grabbed up, and I keep mentioning, hey, I really think that we need to put the house on the market first.
you know for sure that they have to sell first. Have they asked their lender that question?
That's what because it's going to be on the wife. She's the one that's going to be approved for it. So it is contingent. They do.
Okay. So the likelihood of getting an offer accepted in this market on a contingent property that hasn't been on the market for 2 weeks or more is extremely low. Okay. So a seller is not going to accept an offer from a buyer who has to sell their house in this market and hasn't even taken the steps to get the home prepped and ready and placed on the market yet. Because
Right.
if it takes your seller 2 weeks, or your buyer seller, if it takes them 2 weeks to get their house ready for the market, well, then you assume that it's probably going to take somewhere between 20 and 31 days for them to have a buyer go under contract and close on that home. So now you're 6 weeks out. What seller in this market is going to keep from getting their paycheck for 6 weeks? It's just not going to happen. So the conversation with them is to explain that as nicely as you can. Ask them to put themselves in the seller's position. Hey, listen, if someone knocked on your door right now and said, hey, we want your house, but we can't give you any money for it before 75 to 90 days, would you take their offer right now and not give anyone else the opportunity to make a deal with you? The
Right.
answer is no. So we can't expect anyone else to do that. So let's put your house on the market now.
Well, and I would tell them too, Amber, like in this market, you want to be competitive. And when they're calling for highest and best, you're not going to be able to give a best because your best would be non-contingent. So, hey, we can rectify that situation by going ahead and putting your house on the market, and then we can be competitive.
Exactly. And this is what I've been telling them from the get-go. And it's like they just don't have faith in what I'm saying. So I guess, they'll just continue to go look at homes that are, and like this weekend they had 2 scheduled, that they've already missed out on 3 or 4 of them. So I'm just going to keep telling them that's all you can do. I can't force them.
So is there, like with Janine yesterday, she was super frustrated because she's got all of these clients that can't do a highest and best. So with the market here now with PCSCs and ramping up and all of those things, how would you handle that? Because are they just never going to find a house?
It's really frustrating. And like the triangle is so different than down here. And I had the same situation. First time home buyers, military couple, didn't have a lot of money, didn't have, liquid. They didn't have a lot of cash to bring to the table. It's a nightmare for people like that. I feel terrible for them because and they were military. They were coming from California. They had to have a house. They had to live here.
Right.
So
There's no other choice.
Yeah, no other choice. And people also see a VA and they don't want to work with a VA loan, but I'm like, that's all that it is around here, is VA loan. So it's tough.
Well, I mean, what you just said is something I want to touch on, because if everybody's using a VA loan, then that means somebody's VA loan is getting accepted.
That's
So
what
we
I was gonna
can't
say.
use
I
that.
feel like in our area, like at some point, yeah, we have like the beach homes where you'll get more of people coming from out of town, but for the most of the part, it's military families, so they're all kind of in the same boat. So I feel like as inventory comes up a little bit, it's gonna get easier. Like it has to, because everyone's got a VA loan around here, like everyone. So I feel like it's got to get better.
Why is VA not wanted as much as preferred?
I would say in past, which I've found that it has gotten so much better with the way the market is, VA are really strict on their appraisals. And so properties wouldn't appraise. So then they have to come up with a difference, or the seller has to bring the price down. But here recently, knock on wood, like things have been appraising. I don't know if the appraisers are realizing like, hey, we need to get with the times and get these people homes or what, but so in my opinion.
We personally have bought 3 houses VA, and the appraisals have been, it's always really, really crazy things that they decide are a problem, but it's always been like right at what we're buying. So we've been really fortunate. I've never seen one. We haven't ever bought a fixer upper or anything like that. So, I do know what it would look like, but
a couple thing about VA loan, and to an extent USDA and FHA. The appraisers are typically more particular and tougher on value for VA. The appraisers are meticulous and typically much more stringent on repairs that they require for VA. I've had 2 VA loans in the last year where the appraiser wouldn't sign off on the loan and required another site visit to the house because an electrical outlet plate cover was missing, which is, they're 69 cents from Lowe's, it's ridiculous, but it is what it is. And so much of this is the language that we use. So when your buyer gets frustrated about it, hey, listen, you're a veteran or a relative of one, essentially they're trying to protect you. And I know it sounds silly, but you don't want an electrical outlet catching on fire and burning your house down. So, I mean, this is as annoying as it is, they're trying their best to protect you. When it comes to the offer situation and how difficult the market is, and I struggle with this too, and I talked to Doug and other people about it, we have to be extremely careful that we're not reflecting how difficult this is. You have to be honest with your client. But if you make it sound like to your client that they have absolutely no fucking shot of winning a house, well, what they're not going to do, they're not going to try as hard as they need to, and they're probably going to stop looking. And here you have showed 15 homes to someone who is like, you know what, I think I'm going to rent for another year. Well, and honestly, it may be worse a year from now. No one knows, and anyone who says they do are lying to you. So we have to be really careful. To Juliana's point, if everyone down there is using a VA, somebody's figuring out a way to win with VA loans. What are they doing that you're not? What are their clients doing that you're not? Make sure we're asking for feedback when we lose offers instead of just taking it on the chin. Now, maybe not every listing agent is going to give you feedback, but it's like a repair request. I told my clients they can't say no if you don't ask. So ask. It is a really tough market right now. But Krista had a house go under contract this weekend, $60,000 over list price. Her clients they didn't even take they took the highest offer, but she had another one go in multiple offers, and her sellers didn't take the highest offer. They figured out another reason that mattered to them. So as much as we think it's always about the money, sometimes it's not. And that's why VA can be tough, more so in the triangle than down there. Typically, your VA client is doing 100% financing. And to some sellers, that's a turnoff, because if someone's putting 20+% in cash down, they've got more skin in the game. And a seller can feel that they're in better shape financially. There's less risk of them backing away or their loan falling apart. So that's another reason why VA can be more difficult. In your area, they're probably more. I'm sure they're more predominant than they are here, but there are a couple of reasons. But again, we have to be really careful not to let our frustration with how difficult it is bleed over and discourage our clients from trying, because if you do that, then we're self-sabotaging our own business and we're not providing a resource to them.
So a big misconception about VA that I want to make sure that we talk about is that everybody is or has to borrow 100% and that they don't have any liquidity. Just because somebody is taking advantage of cheap money to borrow doesn't mean that they don't have money in the bank to make up an appraisal of difference. Right. So just don't assume that, and don't let a listing agent assume that when you send an offer over that is a VA. Make sure that you've talked about those situations with your client and you know what their cash position is, and they are prepared to make up something like that. So don't just let people assume in those situations that they have to borrow everything and everything is going to be razor thin and the appraisal could completely throw it off. And I would like to say, I know that we are writing and winning multiple offers and that people are paying over list price, but I talk to every one of you every week and I am not hearing people complain about homes not appraising.
Yeah, that's what, yeah.
So I just won with a VA loan.
Yeah, I think the appraisers, I don't know if I want to say to their credit because that's a little strong, but I think they've definitely gotten better than they were 6 months ago when everything, especially at the coast, even conventional, nothing was appraising. I think they've realized where the market is and they've caught up a little bit. But I mean, I think that's really important to realize with any loan type and to be able to explain, yeah, well, they're VA because they're a veteran or they're active service member and they qualify to use this product. Anyone would. And right. Yeah, they're borrowing 100%, but it's because they can. They don't need to. The money is cheap.
Yeah, that was my VA that I just won with. I asked her if it doesn't appraise, and she's like, oh, it's just a down payment at that point.
Right.
It's fine, Right. So she was fine and we ended up winning. So
well, and with my VA that won, what sold the deal, and it was asking price, nothing over, of course, a decent amount of DD, but we could do a 21-day close, and we can do a 21-day close. And that's what sold it for us. Like, who wants to wait 45 days to get their money when they can have it in 21 days?
You're exactly right. And to Doug's point, I won a VA loan in Raleigh 2 weeks ago in multiple offers, which was, could not believe we won. And then I really couldn't believe what it appraised for, because we went 25 grand over list price and it appraised for almost 30 grand more than we're paying for it, which is just absolutely insane. But one of the things I told, when I told the seller's agent, I got them on the phone, make sure you're doing everything you can to do that. I explained to the seller's agent, yes, we're doing 100% VA financing, but here's the bottom line. My client has earned the right to do this through serving the country, so he wants to use this, but they're full of money. So if we had signed an appraisal addendum, we've got plenty of cash. I sent over his investment statement to prove that. And I explained, listen, if the house doesn't appraise, he's putting 25 grand in due diligence. That money is going to be way more than the closing costs. He's probably already paid part of the appraisal gap in his due diligence check. We are going to be fine. So make sure you're thinking as much as you can proactively about, okay, I'm not so sure this is very strong, but how can I couch it to the listing agent when I get them on the phone, and also via email when you submit the offer, to show we're prepared to do what it's going to take to win here. Now, obviously, if your client can't do that, yeah, it's tougher, but some of us can. And we just need to make sure that we're making sure that we're shining a light on that instead of just saying VA loan here. It is what it is.
That's a good way to put it, shine a light on it, because you've got these folks and they're dealing with 5, 10 plus offers. They look at the high level stuff. That's why we talk about communicating. Talk, even if you can't get them on the phone when you send the offer over, make it a very, very detailed, spell everything out for them on one page by bullet points. So it's very clear and they can articulate that to their client. You might be dealing with a brand new agent who's never dealt with multiple offers before, or never received a VA offer on one of their listings before. They don't necessarily know how to explain it to their clients. Do it respectfully and politely and not condescendingly, but spoon feed it to them.
Mm-hmm.
And so you would just like type that up in an email, or recommend to just type that up in an email? And
Yeah, well, I ideally, Holly, and I'm Brandon, we haven't met.
hi.
Ideally, you want to get the listing agent on the phone and ask a
Okay.
couple questions. That I cannot tell you guys, and Juliana and Cassie, I'm sure you're starting to see this now. Amber, you certainly will. There are a lot of agents that are not good, and they just don't communicate, and they don't pick up the phone. Some listing agents and some buyer agents, but I had a listing go under contract last night, and we got 3 offers. 2 of the offers I never spoke to the buyer agents. They didn't call me at all. The one who won it called me yesterday morning at 7 a.m. I was at the gym, and she's like, listen, what can I do to get into this place this morning before 9 o'clock? My client wants it and can't get in there after 9. What can we figure out? And she was aggressive and communicated. And the other 2 sent fine offers, but I never heard from them. And it's still the best offer for my client, but I paid attention. And when I went over the offers last night with my buyer, I said, this agent is on it. Or my seller rather, this agent is on it. If we have a problem, I'm confident that, we'll be able to work it out. Not a lot of people do that. And our clients, that's the value. When we talk about bringing value to people, that is the value that we're supposed to be bringing. It is work.
The customer service aspect of
Absolutely. 100%.
actually what we're doing.
Yes. 100%.
Yeah.
And that's really how you'll set yourself apart, even if people are basing it on past experiences with another agent or they're shopping you, which is happening probably. But because you're not just, hey, all right, you want to see a house? All right, let's go see the house. Hey, you want to buy the house? Oh, you don't? Okay, well, I'll send you some more houses. See you later.
Right.
Anybody can do that.
Right.
That's the stuff we don't want to settle for. Go the
Right.
extra route, have these additional conversations, make sure that they understand the process. That's why we have the buyer consult. That's why we talk about setting expectations for what's going on in the marketplace right now.
And sometimes they still won't listen. I found that out.
people, and I said it, I'll say it again, people have to lose to win sometimes because they get in their own way. They think that they're smarter than they really are.
They
And,
just wanted a counter, and I said, "We're not. That's not really."
right. So,
gonna
you know, in a situation like that, and I know you said you're going to, of course, but just for everybody else's benefit, when you go to write the next offer, okay, remember how last time we talked about this is your shot, you're not going to get a counter, and then you said you were surprised they didn't counter. I'm telling you, you're not getting a counter. Okay. So this is your shot. Like Eminem said, you only get, you know, whatever. Okay. So let's do it. You got to come strong from the get-go because nobody's
Well, and
guaranteed tomorrow.
Can we explain it to them like the ball game has changed? It is not back and forth anymore.
Yeah. Absolutely.
Amen to that.
Yeah, I tried, and he's like, "Well, I bought houses before, and you know, I
And
really."
those are the people who are too smart for their own good, or they think they are.
And yeah, that's the exception, not the rule.
Yeah, and then she like came back and said, "Well, what if I wanted to offer this?" I'm like, "Then you should. When I told you we needed highest and best, and we weren't going to get a counter, that's what you should have come to me with. What you would have countered back, like that's."
When we
what
do
you-
the when you do the buyer consult, we need to explain that my job as an agent is to give you the best information I can to help you make a decision you're comfortable with based on my experience and what I'm seeing in the market. Sometimes that involves me telling you things that you don't want to hear. Now, ultimately, we're going to do what you want to do at the end of the day, but I'm going to be honest with you. And if you want to write an offer on a house that I know is not going to win, I am going to tell you that, and I'm going to show you why based on the data and based on my experience. So right off the bat, a home on the market for the first weekend, unless my comps show that the home is dramatically overpriced, and I will show that to you. If you're not willing to pay at a minimum list price, you don't even need to go see the house the first 10 days on the market. It just is what it is. Okay. In addition to that, we have a serious inventory shortage. And the old days of making an offer and playing ping pong back and forth and settling on a number, those days are over. We cannot predict what the seller is going to do, and we don't know who the seller is. I don't know. I don't represent them. I represent you. So if you make an offer, we have no way of knowing how many other people are interested in the same property. Some sellers want to get as many offers as they can, and then they do a highest and best. Some sellers don't want to fool around with showings for 5 or 6 days, and the first number that they get that is close to the mark or exceeds it, they're going to take it, and they're not going to fool around. They want to get this thing done for whatever reason. We don't know who we're working with. So when we go to make an offer on a house, you need to offer what you're willing to pay. And if you lost it to someone else because they offered $500 more than you, and you knew you would offer that or more to win the house, then that's your fault for not making the offer that you knew you needed to make.
Yeah.
Brandon speaks so eloquently.
Yeah.
I'm like, can we just get that right written down?
Well, it comes from experience, but the other thing is, and I think, and Doug, you tell me what you think. This is especially difficult, I think, for people when they're first getting started. You cannot be afraid to lose a client, because if they are not willing to do what they have to do to win, they're not going to win anyway. And ultimately, at the end of the day, and Amber, I'm talking to you right now about those people that want to just see stuff. If they're not willing to do what they need to do to win, they are wasting your time, and they are keeping you from moving your business in the right direction. Because if you're out showing them 15 houses, knowing full well that they cannot do this until they put their house on the market, think of all the time you're wasting where you could be training, asking your teammates questions, in the office, learning from other people, calling your leads, watching resource video. There are a million things you can be doing to improve your business, and they're not listening to you, the expert, and they're taking you for granted.
Right.
Cassie, I absolutely have people, and I have some now. I've got one of my best friends. I'm helping his brother, and he just didn't get it yet. We've lost 2 offers, and we had a talk the other day. Listen, this is not going to get it done. I'm just being honest with you. You're going to have to step outside of your comfort zone if you want to win and quit renting. You have to have those conversations at a certain point.
Yeah.
Now, I may not say I'm as cut and dry as what I'm saying on the Zoom right now, but it ain't all that far from it. I mean, they have to respect you. And if you're a wallflower and they think you're just going to push you over and do whatever you want, with them for the next 6 months, they will take advantage of you and they will not make a decision. And your business will suffer because you will waste all your time on people that can't do anything.
Yeah.
I think probably the single hardest thing starting out in this business is accepting that you just got to let people go, because people will become a time suck. And that's why we talk so much about mastering your schedule and the language you use when you're available for folks. You give them times, you don't ask for times for them. Or, I have an appointment. Your appointment could be your kid's soccer game. That's fine. Knowing when to pick up the phone. Okay, it's dinner time. All right, I'm getting a call from a hot. All right, maybe I text them I'm eating dinner. I'll call you back in 10 minutes. Maybe you get a call from a watch that lives in, Connecticut or whatever, and they're not going to be here for 2 months. Okay, well, I can call them back in an hour or so. Knowing what is urgent and what is not urgent, and understanding that or not understanding it can really drive you crazy in this business. You don't have to put out every fire immediately, but you do have to be able to recognize which ones do need attention now and which ones don't need attention now, so you don't drive yourself crazy. Know where to invest your time, where it's needed most. And if you feel like you can't tell, then look inward and say, okay, what conversations am I having with these people that are preventing me from knowing how I should treat them? You know what I mean? What am I not understanding about their situation so I know how to appropriately work with them? And then if people just straight up won't listen to you, especially after maybe you've lost once, then you have to reevaluate where we're going with stuff. Hey, I'm committed to helping you. Sometimes I'm going to tell you things that you might not necessarily agree with or want to hear, but that's based on my experience and understanding of this marketplace, and because I want to help you accomplish your goals. I hope you realize it's coming from a good place. It absolutely is. That being said, we can't keep offering list price for homes that are 1 day on the market. It's just not going to happen. So if somebody, like, here's an old thing, and I don't see it as much now, but in the past, people would be like, well, I'm never going to pay list price. Well, why? What is that based on? Is it you just don't pay retail because you shop at the outlets all the time? Or is it because you're convinced that you know what something is worth? Because I can show you what it's worth. All right. So if something's listed for $255 and you're like, I'll never pay $255, but I'll pay $250. Why? What is your mindset basing that on? If it was listed at $260, would you pay $255? Is it just because you need to get a discount? You understand where I'm coming from? And then that's where you have to show them the data, help them understand, explain to them that agents and sellers will list properties in different ways. Some will list low, and I can show you it's low, to get more offers and drive the price up ultimately. That's definitely a strategy. Some are going to play it right to market, all right, because they don't want to mess around. Some are going to overprice it because you get sellers who know the market's really competitive, or sellers are like, I don't need to sell, or I need to get so much out of it, etc. That's what we base our offer price on, not X amount below list price. Some people
I
struggle with
hate
that.
hearing people say, well, it's worth blah, blah, blah. It's only worth what
I'm
somebody
gl-
is willing to pay for it.
I'm glad you brought that up. And you get that a lot with these types of clients that think that they have their real estate license because they've bought 2 homes over the last 25 years. A house is worth what one person is willing to pay for it. It doesn't matter what the comps say. It doesn't matter what an appraiser says. If one person is willing to pay $700,000 for a $350,000 house, the house is worth $700,000.
Amen.
And so if you that doesn't mean you're just throwing money around, right, and making bad financial decisions. But this idea of a house is not worth X, what makes you say that? Okay, what data do you have to support that? Because the reality is in this market, we've only got like 3 weeks of inventory. The house is worth whatever someone's going to pay for it. And they may not pay this, but it probably won't be that far off.
And if they can't get past that, despite all of that, okay, here's our next option then. We will only go and view homes that have been on the market at least a week.
Yeah.
Because that's the only way you're paying less than list price for anything.
And I know Janine has done that with her clients, and I think it's a really smart thing too.
Yeah.
It's absolutely smart because
I'm allowing you to get frustrated and waste your own time by thinking something that's going to happen is not going to happen. I'm looking out for you, actually. That's why I'm suggesting this.
Doug probably gets tired of me saying this, but I say this all the time. I'm doing you a disservice if I'm not being honest with you. And if you're not willing to, at a minimum, go list price, which up here I guarantee is not going to get it done. I don't know about there. If you're not willing to go at least list price with a very strong due diligence first weekend on the market here, you've got no shot. You're wasting your time.
We're in a totally different market. Let's get in
Yeah.
a different market. We'll get in the.
So
overly-
use that same language and couch it to where it fits your fact pattern.
Well, here's
Right.
the thing though, because this keeps coming up, but I don't agree with it. We're not in different markets. The same conditions exist. Now.
Oh,
the-
no, I didn't mean the Raleigh versus Triangle.
Well, no, I
market.
know,
I
but,
mean,
and I'm not
our-
talking directly to you, Juliana. It is, it comes up from time to time. We are in different markets, but all of the things that we're dealing with are the same. Now, maybe the average due diligence there is $3,000 and here it's $10,000. That's one thing, but I can still guarantee you things are selling immediately. Things are still in multiple offers and things are still selling for over list price. So the conversations we're having with people are the same conversations. The dollar amounts might be different. The approach, the strategy, the thought process behind it is exactly the same. That's really good discussion. You guys jump right into it this morning. I love it.
I don't want to list my house. It seems scary. Yet I
I
got all
mean,
these
No, it's gonna be great, Cassie. It's gonna
It
be
would
great.
seem amazing. You're just going to be like, just bring it to me.
Yeah. Seems like
Here's the thing I will say. If you list your house for an amount and you get an offer over that amount, don't be one of these people who say, oh, well, now I want X.
Can you have a talk with my husband?
I'll let his agent handle that.
I don't want to be his agent anymore.
We're seeing it more and more. And it's just, I think it's really, in my opinion, and my opinion only matters to me for the most part. I think it's disingenuous for these people who say, all right, I'm gonna list my house for $325. And then they get an offer for $350. And then they're like, well.
Cassie, let me give you an example. 2 weeks ago, I had a client looking at a house in Raleigh. It'd been on the market 4 days, $355. We offered $355 and $10,000 in due diligence. And the lady's agent, I didn't put a time addendum on it. About 48 hours later, I didn't have any decision. So I called the agent and I asked the agent, I said, well, if she wanted $365 for the house, why didn't she list it for $365? And she said, I don't know. I'm encouraging her to take the offer, but the way the market is, she just thinks she can get more than list price. So I found a house incoming soon, 4 doors down from the house that we had the offer on. We pulled our offer, make it a sight unseen offer on the other house for $10,000 over list price. Went under contract, and that home that we still had the list price offer on is still on the market. So
I mean, yeah.
don't take for granted when you have someone who's working with you and wants to get a deal done, because you may have someone who comes in higher. You have no idea. You don't know.
What is it? A bird in the hand is worth more than 2 in the bush.
Yep.
Something like that.
Yeah. Yeah, I don't know. It's going to go so fast, and I don't even know when I should list it because I don't know when my house will be ready, and I don't want to be homeless.
I wouldn't list it if I were you until you get everything out and get moved in the other house, unless something dramatically changes between now and then.
Yeah. Yeah.
Because then you won't have to be inconvenienced by any showings. You can just make it a free for all. I would activate it on a Friday and you'll be under contract Sunday evening probably.
Yeah.
Because that neighborhood just flies, it does.
Mm-hmm.
So, all right. I think this is a really good discussion. Unless anybody has anything specific, I'd like to just cut it off there because I think it's good when we talk about 1 or 2 things and then leave it at that instead of swirling in a bunch of different directions. And then it's hard for the conversation to stick. So does anybody have anything else? Cool. Great participation, guys. thanks so much. I hope it was helpful to you. I hope y'all have a great day.
See y'all.
Thank you.
Bye.
Bye, guys.